Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are visiting the roots of misogyny, misogyny around the world with an old video from our man, the myth, the legend, Sandman himself, Sandman MGTOW. This is one of his older videos, or should I say oldest videos. It's from November of 2013. This would have been during the birth of really any of this. Like, if you look at the history of the red pill, you could probably trace it all the way back to the MRA, right? The men's right activists, and probably soon thereafter Sandman. So he's in the very much the early days, the dark ages of the red pill and the men's revolution. But anyway, we're going to check out one of his old videos called Are Women Capable of Love? Let's figure out his perspective.
Hi everyone, this is Sandman, and this is my second video, and it's entitled Women Are Incapable of Love. So today I'd like to talk to everyone about their favorite four-letter word, and the difference between how men and women experience love, and why I believe that most women are essentially incapable of love. But before I bring up why I believe women in general are incapable of loving men, I think it's important to define love from a male perspective. So what is love? My definition is that love is a chemically induced altruism triggering irrational behavior towards women in the minds of men. When a man
Okay, I mean, I have multiple problems with this definition. It gets tricky when you start defining things as chemical reactions because you can just import any chemical reaction on the human brain whenever you want. Right? So if the right chemicals lined up in your brain, would you call that love? I mean, it's a very one-sided view on love, as viewing it as a purely chemical reaction. It's obviously not just chemical. It exists in the chemical realm of your brain. It also exists in your biology. It exists socially. It exists on the individual level. It exists on the communal level. It exists on the... Some people would say that exists. Well, I mean, if God is love, then clearly exists on some kind of transcendental level, or at least on a theological level. So to say it's only chemicals in your brain which make you... It is chemicals in your brain, but it's not just that, because there are different realms of reality that these things operate on. And if you're trying to reduce it as merely and only a chemical state, then you're missing the poignancy and significance and maybe the true nature of what love is, or what anything is for that matter. But anyway, let's get into it.
man falls in love with a woman, his reason and judgment become impaired by the quote-unquote happy hormones and chemicals released by the brain. And if those chemicals are powerful enough, men cease to think and act in their own self-interests. And women understand this, and this is why I believe many women are interested in hearing those three magical words from many guys, and those words being, I love you. If women felt the same way that men do, then they wouldn't need the constant reminder from men. And, things like flowers, letter writing, jewelry, and other small gestures of affection would be something that they wouldn't need. And these...
So yeah. I'll agree with him. This is more or less true. Everything he's saying is true, in a sense. I think maybe he's taking it to a bit of an extreme where he's saying men stop using any rationality whatsoever. I don't know about that. I can't even blame him for that, because guys do pretty fucking stupid things for women, bro, and then they're taken to the divorce court and like, oh, how'd this happen? It's like, well, you shouldn't have married her, buddy. Shouldn't have married her there, bud. Shouldn't have done it there, buddy. But yeah, so I can't even argue with him, because simps can be pretty fucking stupid. And but he blames it all on the love hormones. I just blame it on them being simps, whether there's a woman present or not. I think some men are just weak. But yeah, he's not wrong. Okay, so don't get the idea that I think he's wrong. I just think he has only one piece of the puzzle, and I would not reduce it to just this. But what he's talking about here is he's talking about a process that happens in men towards women, that when men fall in love with them, they stop viewing women critically, which this is fundamentally true, and this needs to be the case is because women are fundamentally not as capable as men, and women make mistakes all the time, and children make mistakes all the time too. Children mess up all the time. Children are dirty. Children are messy. And the only real way to get a man who's typically way more serious, typically way more competent, typically way more busy with other important things like hunting, to give attention to the woman and kids is to use these very powerful hormones and feelings to really put the man in the right mindset to be a father. Like if you look at other animals, they don't really parent the same way that we do. They're very laissez-faire. Like most animals are just like, yeah, the kid's there, and then it's usually the kids. Like if you look at a mother duck, the mother duck is just fucking going. The fucking ducks, they're not waiting for their little ducklings. It's the ducklings' job to keep up. But this is not really the case with humans because humans have a very long parenting span. We have to parent our kids for decades, right? So that requires very intensive parenting strategies from the male and the female gender. And really, one of those parenting strategies is kind of tuning down the man's criticalness and judgment of the women when they get into a marriage, and also kind of upping their commitment, upping their investment in the women, and kind of upping the overall dopamine they get whenever they're around women, and making them more tolerant to children and the mistakes that children make and the hassle and pain and misery and suffering that really is raising a family. Because if you think about it logically, as a biological species, a man really has no reason to just give up all his resources to a woman and some kids, right? If creatures are very much self-interested, which they are, we know them to be, then if you're engineering a biological organism which needs to be promoting parenting, how do you do that? It's like, well, what's going to convince the man to spend the next decade parenting all this kid and taking care of this woman for 10 to 20 years? What's going to convince them to do that? And then biology said, we can just give them ridiculous hormones, give them crazy sex drives, give them crazy hormones, make them total simps, and then that way they will be motivated enough to and in the right mindset to parent, right? So it is definitely an invention of our biology and our neurochemistry, and Sandman here is very correct in noticing that.
These gestures seal in the minds of women that the man that they are with really loves them. If they experience love the same way that men do, then they don't need constant reminders of male affection. So maybe women that don't need these constant small gestures...
Also, quick pause. The reason women want constant reminders of affection is one, because their livelihood depends on it, but they're also looking for psychological security. So they're looking for indicators that you are psychologically still attached to them and that you're not going to get up and leave. That's why.
In their relationships have a better understanding of their own mental state or a better understanding of love in general. Maybe they're actually capable of experiencing love the same way as men. I don't really have enough knowledge to make that call, but in my own personal experience, these types of females make up a very small minority of the population. Now, I don't take religion very seriously, and effectively I'm an atheist, but I do find something interesting in the Bible. According to God, men are commanded...
Isn't this interesting? Peterson does the same thing. All these atheists keep referencing the Bible. Isn't that weird? I just find that a little strange. It's like, why do you keep putting your grubby hands on our book, atheists, if you don't like it, if you don't believe in it? Because it's not like you said agnostic, because agnostic would be, I don't know and I don't care and I think it's irrelevant. You said, I'm atheist, which means you're anti-God, means you're anti-religion.
To love their wives. Women, on the other hand, are commanded to be subservient and obey men. There is no commandment for women to love their husbands. Maybe the biblical writers knew something that we don't today.
Oh, that's actually a good point. That's actually kind of a good point. Is that women are commanded to obey, men are commanded to love. Huh. That is a little bit, yeah, interesting. Yeah, you see in the commandments, it's always like obey and take care of and be a servant of, but it's never woman love. It's funny.
Maybe they knew that women are effectively incapable of love. The story of Adam and Eve is also interesting if we reverse it. What if...
Well, I just don't think it's important. You know what I mean? That's how I view it. It's like, well, what does a woman's love really mean? What is a woman's love going to do for you? Is a woman's love going to save you from the firing, burning... Oh, fuck, dude. I'm actually autistic today. Like, my point is, what is the strength of a woman's love to a man? If she's not the one with the resources, if she's not the one with money or protection or with a strong, logically capable mind or with skills, if she's not the one bringing those to the table, why would you really need to care about her love anyway? It's like, you love me, you don't. All that matters is that you obey me. I think that's why the Bible and these philosophers say women need to obey, is because if a woman loves you or not, if she's psychologically attached to you or not, it doesn't really matter, because she has nothing to offer through that psychological commitment that would really mean anything. All that matters is they obey. And I think the reason that the Bible talks about that is because it understands that that's the more important role, is of that of hierarchy, submission, and women's feelings change all the time. So it's like, women love your husbands. It's like, well, it's not really enough, right? Because when a man says he loves his woman, and when a man says, I love you and I will sacrifice things for you and I will take care of you, that's an oath. So I think the reason that the Bible did not emphasize on women's feelings is because women's feelings change all the time. And generally it's not that important. And I think if you're a man looking at a marriage, you shouldn't even look at a woman's love for you. I think it does lie to you. I think it tricks you. Infinitely more important is looking, is she submissive? Because if she's submissive and she's willing to adhere to your authority, and that's ingrained into her, then even when she's upset with you, you go, I know what's best. I'm doing this because I love you. You need to listen to me, and you need to trust me. And then she will go, okay. If she's submissive, she'll disagree with you, and her feelings may change, but she will obey, and she will say, I trust you, I love you. Do this. Which is still risky because her feelings could overpower her submissiveness, I guess, would be the argument that the cynics would say. They'd be like, well, does this woman's submission really matter if she doesn't feel like submitting? It's like, yeah, I guess. But I guess what you're looking for is some sort of a more hard-coded temperament in the woman that would kind of override the potential fluctuations of her feelings, basically. You're looking for someone who doesn't exhibit fucking bipolar personality disorder, crazy ass mood swings, and someone with a generally submissive temperament. I think that's going to help you in the long run. Obviously, there's going to be instances where she gets mad and, her feelings flare up. Obviously, right? That's all women. But it's really, if you have that more, like, if she understands hierarchy and she understands that you always have what's best for her and you're willing to lead and take care of her as long as she listens to you, then if she understands that and she truly listens to that and she trusts you, then I think that will help a lot in terms of getting through arguments and getting through fights, is finding someone who doesn't have like bipolar, or someone who isn't hyper aggressive as a female. But yeah, I think that's generally why the Bible doesn't talk about a woman's love, is because a woman's love is based on her feelings, and her feelings fluctuate all the time. So it's more important that she obeys.
Adam had come to Eve and offered her the apple instead. Personally, I don't think Eve wouldn't have eaten it. Instead, she might have gone to God and said, Adam tried to get me to eat the forbidden fruit. How dare him? Her reasoning ability would have remained intact, but Adam was in love, so eating the apple from the tree of knowledge was a no-brainer. He loved Eve, so his choice to eat from the tree was not impaired by a rational thought process.
Is that true? I've never heard this argument that Adam was in love with Eve, and that's why he ate the fruit. I mean, is that why? I'm not sure if that's canonical.
He was probably just going along with her nagging. The devil went to the woman first, knowing she would go out of her way for male attention, and that she would disarm his ability to think rationally. Eve was like a Trojan horse, used to disarm his defenses and convince him to do something he wouldn't have otherwise done, if you believe such things. Today, women want men to...
Well, okay, I'll definitely agree that the creation story definitely gets right, is that the way to destroy humanity is through the woman. That much is very true. Like, if we look at the way that the West civilization is crumbling currently, the way it's being eroded and destroyed, it's being done through women. It's being done through feminism. It's being done through fear-mongering. It's being done through emotional manipulation, propaganda, lies, taking advantage of the female vote by pandering to women and shaming men. It's all through women. Like the billionaires and all their advertisements, all of their voting campaigns, they're all targeted at women. So the same way that the snake went after Eve to try to target her first because he knew that she was vulnerable. I mean, that's why you leave the wife and kids at home, right? That's why you go out to war yourself. You don't bring the woman, is because it'll just be a vulnerability that your enemy exploits, right? So that's an interesting parallel, at least.
Buy them things because it goes against men's natural and rational self-interests to spend money on women. Once women are sure that the man is acting irrationally, hence in love, they know that he is under her spell and becomes easier to control, and then becomes the informal property of the woman. And the man becomes a slave to the pharmacy found in his own head. Evolution has made it this way, otherwise men would see that marriage and children are actually not in his own best interests, and thus there would be no procreation of the species, and we would all come to an end. Everything around us is...
Well, I mean, he's kind of right. He's saying what I said earlier, which is that without this motivation from the hormones, men, being more rational and self-interested creatures, would be much less likely to invest in parenting. So he's right, but it's more about parenting, because, I mean, wolves do this all the time, right? All other animals, like wolves, for example, they don't really have super strong hormones, and yet they reproduce with female wolves all the time. Yeah, they have some pair bonding, but not to the ridiculous levels that humans have, or not to any of those extremes. So, but the reason we're different from other animals, and the reason we have simps, quote unquote, and we have hormonally motivated men, is because of the need for parenting. So he's not going to mention that, but that is the reason.
Is created to perpetuate the illusion that women love men the same way that men love women. If this illusion was broadly exposed to be just that, an illusion, it is quite conceivable that women and human populations in general would fall. This is what we are seeing in Japan currently. Men are using their reason and rational thinking instead of flooding their bodies with love hormones. Thus, they are shunning the women in their own society.
I don't know if it's that simple. You can break down all of intersectional dynamics of Japan down to, you know, men's irrationality and awakening over women. I would probably challenge that. I don't want to get into... I don't know exactly what he's talking about, because he's talking about 2013 Japan, not modern day Japan, which actually was a very different, a lot more stable and economically productive Japan than is today. A lot less old, a lot less pedophilial. So I don't want to get into the arguments right there. I would have to do research before coming at Sandman with that kind of an argument, but to me that doesn't instill faith, this reason that, oh, men are just abandoning women in Japan because they're rational. I'm like,
Today's pop culture writes women characters in film and television to behave and feel and act exactly like men. Oftentimes, male scriptwriters are writing the female characters the way they really want women to be in real life. And men are seeing this as a form of not only entertainment, but socialization. But in fact, this is just an illusion. And women are also being conditioned by pop culture to act more like men. They appear more fully empathetic and altruistic on film and television, and therefore, women in real life are attempting to take on these same qualities. In general, women can leave their relationships more often and more easily emotionally than men. Love is so powerful in men that they are more likely to kill themselves when they lose their wives and access to their own children. Long after a man loses his sexual attraction for a wife, he continues to love her and the children. He holds firmly to the relationship at all cost in most cases. But the woman knows no love for him, so it becomes easier for her to leave. I believe the higher relationship dissatisfaction that women experience today has something to do with the fact that they can become more emotionally detached from their partners.
I haven't been saying anything because I mostly agree with what he's saying. It's kind of rudimentary. It's like men's commitment is long term, even past their sexual prime. It's like, yeah, because it needs to be. I don't know what to say. He's spot on.
If evolution made women love men the same way that men love women, then it would hurt reproduction. Women would not seek out the better, stronger mates and replace the ones that they are currently with because the current ones are incapable of providing for them and their children. They would stay with the partners they love and not look for the better ones.
Well, I'll simplify what he's saying maybe just to add some interesting commentary. Women love opportunistically, men love ideally. So most of the ideals built up around women are actually male constructions. For example, the bikini and most of women's clothing was actually designed by men, right? Most of the fantasies and the female characters and the best written female characters are written by men. Most webcam studios, the successful ones, are run by men, right? Sometimes those men will even type on the keyboards and help get the men off. No, I'm just joking with you. But my point being that men love ideally. Men do the ideals of love really well. Women are opportunistic, so they're looking for security. They're looking for protection, provision, commitment, and I think the reason women are able to walk away from some relationships better than men is because they're kind of able to look at it through this kind of cold, opportunistic lens where they're like, yeah, if he's not providing what I need, then I need to dump him. And that's probably evolutionarily installed where it's like, yeah, if he's not providing everything I need, then I'm going to dump him. The real problem now is that what women's needs has been kind of evolved into this crazy monster because of consumerism and social media. Okay, so originally and biologically, women don't really need a whole lot. Humans in general don't really need a whole lot. Look at the arising of minimalism in men, single men, right? So that's proof we don't really need a whole lot. But what happens is we have consumerism, we have all these stores, we have capitalism, we have all these things to buy, we have all these advertisements, and they play at women, right? Social media, that's another one. So they all kind of target women specifically to try to exacerbate and take advantage of women's need for security, their need for provision and protection, and these companies have been very good at that. They've made a lot of money, but the problem is they've gotten women almost addicted to this feeling of just getting things and having things thrown at them, and it's kind of exacerbated women's desire for provision and protection way above what their actual biological need is. For example, a woman might say, oh, he only makes 70 grand, he's broke. Which, if you think about it, 70 grand that's more than enough. right? To buy a house somewhere, especially if you have two incomes. If you're in the right place, you can buy a house somewhere that's more than enough to have a roof over your head and to have a meal on the table for your kids, right? It's not going to be a super comfy life. You're not going to have, BMWs and mansions, but this is what I mean is women's standards for what men need to be able to provide has elevated to levels where men just can't compete anymore. Look at social media. Women's need for attention, which is instilled biologically, women need attention from their husband, because if the husband isn't giving them attention, he's going to wander off and give his resources and his protection to some other woman. So she needs his attention. That's a very validated biological need. But it's been it's grown and evolved into this monster where now they need attention from every guy. It's become an addiction. They need attention from hundreds of guys. They need sexual attention. They need other kinds of attention. They need and social media does this horribly. They need to be listening to what they say all the time. They need to take them super seriously. They need to be at their beck and call constantly. You need to be texting me constantly. If you don't text me within 5 minutes, then I'm gonna call you and check where you are. So we have, I think, women today, their addiction and this desperate need and craving, which just never stops for attention, provision, and resources, has grown to immeasurable proportions, and it's definitely hurting a lot of relationships, and it's something we need to think about as a society, because there really is no solution for it. There really is no solution. Like if you're a heroin addict, right, using the analogy of addictions, if you have an addiction, there is no solution, right? Like it's very difficult to get someone to quit an addiction. You have to slowly teeter them off of it, and it's going to be a very painful process. And if the person doesn't have a really good reason, internal motivation to solve that addiction, why would they? So we're going to have a big problem, and I'd say already, but it's going to be even bigger in the future, trying to get women off of this very basic, primal, and honestly validated in some sense addiction for attention, provision, and status from their men. But anyway, I'm done rambling for now. Let's get back to the Sandman.
They would also spend too much time caring for offspring that they knew had no chance of surviving into adulthood. The types of loving and emotional women that most men want to marry these days are not widely available in the gene pool, because they are the ones that have the least chance of surviving and passing on their genes down to future generations. It's the unloving, selfish, and opportunistic women that make up the majority of the gene pool. They have a better chance of passing down their genes, and on the other side, the men that easily fall in love act against their own self-interest have the greatest chance of replicating their genes and spreading their seed as widely as possible. Love becomes a hindrance and a nuisance for female reproduction, and love is a benefit for men looking to procreate. Most women can love through friendship, family, and other common interests, but they are incapable of romantic and passionate love in general. True artistic and emotional passion works against women from an evolutionary standpoint. Rational thinking also works against women because it means they would stay with the man that loves them instead of pursuing other opportunities. It's ironic that the loving and selfless women that many men seek out today are genetic slim pickings. The nasty, selfish women are more likely to reproduce and perpetuate the species, and therefore they're the ones that we're surrounded with.
I mean, there's an element of truth to what he's saying. He's kind of throwing in these negative connotations around this type of woman that, oh, women are opportunistic, therefore they can't love. It's like, well, I would say no. I'd say female submission is very powerful. It's a very potent thing, right? So I'd say they love differently, and they love under different circumstances, and it's kind of the ugly truth. But it's also like a guy won't love a woman if she's not hot. Like, I don't care if she's got a great personality. I don't care if she's super smart. I don't care if she's got a PhD. Your PhD can't suck my D. So if she's not hot, then no love for you, woman. Like, you're fucked. If you just happen to be born with a deformed face, guess what, woman? You're not reproducing. Like, bye-bye. So there is kind of a cynical truth in both genders, and yeah, so I wouldn't frame it. He has this kind of negative, cynical connotation of, oh, women can't love me, unconditionally. It's like, well, men don't really love unconditionally either. Um, and also, if men's idealistic love for women is an ideal and it's a fantasy that gets projected onto us, really the solution isn't go, oh, women don't share this idealistic fantasy the way I do. Boo hoo hoo. The solution is to get over this idealistic fantasy and get a little more pragmatic and get a little more grounded in your perceptions of love and women, and don't, you know, try not to get too butthurt or emotional that women don't love unconditionally. That's what I would say. It's like, yeah, there is a condition, and I don't really take it personally, but it definitely does mean some things too, which is that the role of the woman, if she's going to be happy, is to submit. That's the first thing. It's like, yeah, you can depend on me for my resources and my provision and my protection, but the cost of that is submission. The cost of that is I am your superior. The cost of that is I'm the leader. I need to be the head. I need to be the one making the decisions and steering the ship so that we don't go astray. That's the cost. So, but there's no hard feelings, right? There's no like, I'm not jaded. I'm not mad at women. I'm not like, meh, meh, meh. At least not for that reason. I mean, I have some other bones to pick with women in general for other reasons. But this seems to be Sandman's bone to pick, and I guess I'll let him have it. I don't know what he's been through in life, so I'm not going to pick on him too hard.
Well, that's it for this topic. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them down below in the comments section. Until next time, cheers.
But yeah, so that is Sandman's second video, one of his most poignant videos where he actually goes into his own philosophy on women. He talks about the idea of love and are women truly capable of love? And he kind of arrives at the conclusion that men love unconditionally. So men have an idealistic kind of fantasy fairy tale idea of love. And no, women cannot love the same way. They love opportunistically. And to women's credit, they kind of need resources and provision and security to survive. That's not their fault. I mean, if you compare a modern female to a female like wolf or a female meerkat, the female meerkat is a lot closer to a male, a biological male, than a biological female is to than a human female is to a human male. Meaning the female animals in the animal kingdom are a lot more capable and resemble much closer and have the same capabilities as the males than us humans do with each other. Like, women are significantly weaker than the average human male, right? So that is kind of the cost of them being weaker and being dependent on us for their protection and provision. So with that, I'm going to head out for now, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all have a nice and wonderful evening. Stay safe, take care, and I'll see you all very soon.